Hey everybody, it's Lance Dawson. I'm back in studio with Andrew Stewart this week with another episode of Backstage Lowdown, where normally we talk about all things low, but today, the lowest of the low. We've got Ron Hawkins in studio. He is on tour right now with the band Lowest of the Low. They're celebrating 35 years of Shakespeare My Butt. The show's already kicked off, or the tour rather is already kicked off, and this week they fly into Hamilton and then a couple shows in Guelph, I believe. And we've got Ron in studio today, and we're super excited to talk about Shakespeare My Butt, Lowest of the Low, and probably a few other things if I have my way. Anyway, this episode is, as always, sponsored by Look Digital Marketing. From stunning websites to full service digital marketing, they help your business shine online. See the difference with Look Digital Marketing. If you visit lookmarketing.ca, you're going to find them. Anyway, we got Ron Hawkins in studio. Here we go. Ron,
Hey,
there it is.
Wonder
magic.
what was going on.
I have no idea, but
I
Here
know.
we are.
Look at that. Technological geniuses. And no everybody here is older.
Have
We
you
did it.
have you turned off your computer and turned it back on?
Yeah. Now I sound you
Classic
sound like my
tech
kids.
support.
I don't know. That's terrible. Thanks, Ron, for joining us
yeah,
today, buddy.
no problem.
How are you doing? You rested up from the Danforth show? That looked awesome. I saw some clips.
Yeah, no rest. I mean, I'm so full of fucking energy from that. It's crazy. It's like such a insane blast.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine just being that hyped up. Where do you go? Do you have like an after show wind down with the guys, or do you just
Yeah,
go
we did
home and
have it's funny, my daughter came to the show. She's 20 and then my partner went home and my daughter and I went out with Sandy Pandya, who was the Lowe's original manager. She just won a Juno for, I think, a Lifetime Achievement Award. And Yvonne
Fantastic.
Hatzel, who was a longtime promoter in Toronto. And so these kick-ass, powerful older ladies, and Yvonne's pretty punk rock. I think Yvonne's in her 70s and she's all sort of punked out and everything. Ruby absolutely loved it because it was like, for her, I think it's like she knows the songs and she knows about the band and everything, but
right?
to be, thrust into the craziness. Because as I said to Jill, my partner, I said, we all think that these people are all normal because that we see people like this all the time. But
Right.
from my daughter's perspective, it's like, no, everybody you know is a weirdo. Because we're in the carnival, right? So it was like, yeah, it was a total
Exactly.
blast. So we
Has she
went,
never witnessed like a low concert where just all the people come out and it's
yeah, where did she see? She seen me solo when she was younger, and she saw me with the Do-Good Assassins opening for Blue Rodeo when she was also younger. And then she was at the concert hall last year, but I think this was different because of the nature of the Shakespeare like
right?
35th
Well, and now
anniversary.
she can come out with you after the fact to the bar and you know hang out with her dad and have a drink if she chooses and just meet those that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. And she just
Yeah, she
now
was
doesn't
hearing.
think you're the only weird one now.
No,
You're not, no longer.
she calls me
She
a pod. So
a what?
she says you're a pod. It's like you don't respond to things the way a normal person responds to things.
What? I don't even know what a pod means.
That's
I'm gonna have to
nice.
Google that after.
Space,
You
I've
you
come from
yeah.
space.
You don't count on your kids for compliments.
No, well, the thing is, the joke in my house is I take everything as a compliment. So I take that as a compliment. I'm like, it means I'm an unusual person.
Oh, nice. There you go.
I
See,
Get a
can
you
t-shirt
have
made.
you
lift
have
almost
these
anything
people who
into a
have
compliment.
daughters don't get it because they're just beautiful and quiet and I love you, Dad. When you have sons, it is just a continually it's all ball busting. That's all it
Hmm.
is. I have Ron, I have a message for you, by the way. My youngest son, who's 23, left on Thursday, driving cross country with an SUV, tent on top,
Oh,
girlfriend by his side,
right.
driving across, going to live in Tofino for the summer, surf, work at a restaurant, blah, blah, blah. And he knew I was getting to talk to you today. and they just pulled into Calgary and they're going to be in Canmore under the mountains and stuff. And he said, Dad, make sure you tell Ron that I've been listening to California Gothic as we drive into the mountains, and it's
Oh,
killer. It is the perfect song. I don't know why. It's like, California Gothic, really? He goes, the vibe is absolutely perfect, and he needs to know that. I said, okay, I
oh, nice.
promise you, I will tell him.
Beautiful. That's exactly what a songwriter wants to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, to my point about sons, we had a quick breakfast before Ben left on this trip. So I had my other son, my wife, and they weren't going to be around for Mother's Day. We talked about Mother's Day for 5 minutes straight about like, are you okay, Mom? It's going to be great. We're not going to be here, blah, blah, blah. And then Ben looked up and said, hey, when's Father's Day? And my other son, without missing a beat, said, who cares? It's just like, I'm always so proud of him and yet dismayed at the same time. I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
Thanks, kid.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, so Ron, thanks, man. I know this is a busy time for you. I'm excited. We're coming to Hamilton, so I'm going to get to see the show on Friday night, which is cool. Bridgeworks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, never been. Good venue.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's fantastic.
Cool. I've seen the Low in several different venues, so it's nice to see them in a different one for me. Anyway, yeah, so that's pretty cool. You mentioned the Do Good Assassins. We're gonna get back to Shakespeare My Butt because that's awesome. But I love the Do Good Assassins. What is the deal, man? Where are you guys?
Well, we've been sort of furloughed because two of the Do Good Assassins are in a band called Ace of Wands, and they just released a new record. They've been on tour. Low's been doing lots of stuff. I've been doing lots of stuff solo. And you
Right.
get to a point. I mean, there was no intention of Do Good Assassins, Lowest of the Low, and my solo thing ever all being happening at the same time,
Right.
because I put together the Do Good Assassins when the Low after a Low breakup.
Right.
That was going to be my vehicle, my band vehicle. And then, of course, the Low did what the Low does, which is get back together. And
Right.
so now all of the balls are in the air. So, part of it is also like how much of me can people handle, right? Because
Yeah.
you
But
get,
they're different versions. Like I love that you
yeah.
bring that up because I don't know. We'll have to talk about that. Like, how do you write a song and do you sit back and say it's a Lowest of the Low song or it's a Do Good Assassin song or it's a Ron solo thing? Because I'm on a different level. I never pretend to be on that level, but it's the same thing. We talked about this actually with Monday Morning Whiskey. Is this a Lance solo song or does the band get to
Mhm.
grab hold of it? So do
Yeah,
you
for
have a
me,
method there or what's that?
not really. I mean, I just write all the time, and then there are ones that jump out, and it's like, well, that's a Low song. Like there are things that I hear that I recognize that are you know not a template or anything, but they just have the earmarks of a Lowest to the Low song, so that usually goes into that Low
Right.
pile. And to be quite candid, quite a few of the DGA songs that have wound up on DGA records have been turned are songs that have been turned down by Lowest of the Low, because after this many years, like it doesn't matter, what accolades I might get as a songwriter. I'm just another guy in the band. When I bring songs into
Right.
the band, it's like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't,
I don't
I
feel
don't like
it.
the vibe of that
But
one.
sometimes it's still a great song, but it just doesn't match the vibe of the band.
Well, it's so
So
subjective too, because like I don't even know if it's sometimes the vibe of the band, but it's like it could be one person's personal subjective take on it. Because to be honest with you, uh, the vast majority of songs that didn't make it on a Low record that I wound up pulling over and putting on a DJA record, we're learning them, and the people in DJA are like, "Are those guys fucking crazy? Like this is a great
yeah,
song, like."
Yeah.
So it may just be, it's just flavors. People like
yeah.
their flavors, their menus. That's why they have menus in restaurants, as
Yeah.
tells me.
Well, the Lowest of the Low has such guitar driven riffs. Like if I were to say analyze, what's sort of the commonality, there's just so much guitar driven stuff. And when you read or when you listen to Over Years and Overnight, the first two songs, I mean, theoretically, I think they could be on Shakespeare My Butt. Like they've got that guitar driven
Right.
vibe stuff where I don't know. I feel like Do Good Assassins has a different melodic thing that they're listening for. It might be a little more folk country
Well,
rockish
also
kind of stuff.
there's two kinds of Do Good Assassins, because there's 1.0, which was around 2013 and lasted till about 2017, and then I retooled the band again in 2020 maybe, and it's new players, and the 2.0 DJ is pretty ripping. Like it's a pretty
Yeah.
I would say it's up there. I like it might even be punkier than the low. Like it's,
Oh, okay.
it's
I don't
pretty.
think I've seen those guys or heard them because the last I was, you guys were
Yeah.
doing Rome, that
We
kind
made
of
a
stuff,
record, but
right?
we made a record called 246, which
Yeah.
was such a blast because we made it on a 4-track Tascam 4-track cassette.
Oh,
Oh, no
wow.
way.
Recorder.
That's really cool.
I
Old
bought one
school.
partially because like if you've made as many records as I've made, like sometimes it's kind of like, well, what can we do that'll be, and I saw this Tascam that I had. I owned one in 1985, and I was like, I'm going to buy that, and we're going to make a record on it, like old school, like no
Yeah.
bells and whistles, no editing. Everybody's going to have to play everything all the way through. My deal was like maximum 7 tracks because I can bounce
Right.
around. Maximum 7 tracks and no digital editing, like no plugins, no, if you
Right.
heard it, then it sounded like that in the room. And it sounds great. It sounded so good. In fact, this machine, I got it tooled up. There was a place called the Dupe Shop in Toronto, which was just a bunch of like young, they weren't even old enough to be analog guys. They were like young guys who were obsessed with analog, and they tooled it all up and made it perfect, like out of the box running condition. And I told Jill when we did some recording, I was like, I'm kind of afraid that people will not believe that we made this on a 4-track cassette machine, because when I
Wow.
used to demo when I was 17 and 18,
Right.
boy, the hiss and the buzz and she's like, you have had 40 years of mic placement, and like you know
Yeah.
more about recording than you did when you were 18. So yeah, so we made that record. It's called 246, and it's pretty ferocious when it is ferocious, and then there's some ballads and stuff like that too.
Right.
But it was a blast.
Oh, all right. That's cool. That's cool. Has it
Did you
always
record
been?
that
Sorry,
in
go ahead, man.
did you actually go into the studio and still do that, or did you
So
do that in at home? Or
Jody, our drummer, in his living room,
awesome.
4 people in his living room. There was, I believe there was 3 mics on the drums, 2 overheads and a kick, and it went down to a stereo pair. And then Lee on bass, Stuart on lead guitar, me on rhythm guitar and vocals. So, and boom.
Wow.
Because the funny thing is, right? Every time the Low makes a record, or anytime I make a record with anybody, including people I produce, this idea is always like, we should go in and make a record like Nick Lowe used to make, or, like drums in the middle, bass in the middle, vocal, couple of guitars, you're done. Like no 17 guitars over here and
Right.
banks of
Yeah.
keyboards over there. But you get in the studio and the technology is so available that it's seductive, and you find yourself, well, maybe when the chorus comes, we do kind of, it breaks out into stereo and there's layered guitar, and you get carried away. And before you know it, you've got 90 tracks on your song, right? Whereas this was like, I'm going to have 7 tracks on my song. I can't have any more than that. So
Yeah.
it really made us make the record that we've been talking about making for a long time, which is old school. It sounds good. The players are listening to each other. There's a lot of soul. Bang,
Right. Well, somebody's going to believe it because you can at least say to them, why don't you come out and see the show this weekend? And we are going to sound exactly like that
Yeah.
without the choir and all the other 10 effects that we could normally have done.
We called Phil Spector, but he was busy. So.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. Oh man.
Yeah, so it is a real grab bag
Yeah.
of like where the songs start and where they go, and and what's up with booking bands and stuff these days, because even let's say the Low, right? When we were first doing Shakespeare My Butt in clubs in 91, Dave has these pamphlets that we would make where we played 6 gigs in Toronto in 1 month. Like we played Ultrasound
Right.
Show Bar, our own show, and then we'd open for somebody at Lee's, and then we'd play a Clinton's gig, and then we had a standing 3-day thing we did at this place called the Blue Moon Saloon, where we were just kind of jammed in a corner. We played kind of ferocious acoustic sets where people would dance on the tables, and that was 1 month, right? And so that world has changed so much that now, like, maybe we'll play Toronto twice in a year, maybe. If it's a huge show like these ones, 2 sold out Danforth,
Right.
that might be it for this year. Like, because you can't do that, right? You can't overexpose yourself like you used to be able to do. And so for me to have 3 different entities of me, it does come down to like, it gets tough to keep drawing from the same fan base, right? And asking them to pony up,
Yeah. Have you
No,
ever
for
had
sure.
somebody at a solo show not know about the Lowest of the Low?
I'm not, well, no, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I know,
It's hard to judge that.
I know that there seems to be 2 kinds of crowds, which is that even in the Low shows, like even at the Danforth Music Hall, I'll bet you if there was 1,500 people there each night, I'll bet you 700 people, I'm just going to spitball here, let's say
Right.
600 people could care less if we ever make another record in the rest of our lives, right? They
Right.
love Shakespeare My Butt. You know, they're fine with the other records, but they don't really, you know, their thing is Shakespeare My Butt. And then the other 900 are people who are like, yeah, I can't wait, you know, because I've got some new favorites, and you know, and every time you guys make a record, there's some stuff off there that I love, and you know, you guys are still. I feel like we're still relevant, and we're still trying to be curious and build ourselves and learn new things, and you know,
Yeah.
but it is a real
Yeah.
mix. And then of course with my when I go do solo shows, that's usually the crowd is like, okay, we're in it for the 270 songs, like whatever you want to play, we're
Right.
in, you know. And they might
Yeah.
even say like, I've seen the low, get to see the low, so you don't even like just a couple of those, fine, but you know, let's go
Yeah.
through the catalog, you know. So that's fun too.
I always just wondered whether somebody was sitting, because I remember there was one time you were playing mm, oh, it's a little club in KW. Andrew, what's the one on Jane Bond? It's the Jane Bond
Okay.
Cafe.
Mhm.
And I was going to go down and have a beer, and I thought Ron's just doing a solo show anyway. This would be kind of fun. And then there's like a raging blizzard outside. So I think it was like Ron and four of us, which as a guitar player, that's a tough deal. That's a long night when you're playing like four people in a bar. But I always wondered whether someone had comes up and hears Rosie and Gray, or, you know, to just pick one, and said, you know, have you ever thought of doing something with that song? Because that's really good, man. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be somebody out there that sees
Yeah,
you play
kicking it
solo.
around.
Like, what do you think? You think that's a
Well,
really good
you know,
song?
here's a good example though. The one way I know that I don't get down about, you know, because sometimes we'll joke about Shakespeare is the golden egg and the albatross at the same time, right? Because
Yeah,
obviously any band in the world would kill to, you know, any band that we know would kill to have a record that they can 35 years later go out and
yeah,
support. So that's obviously incredible, and we feel blessed about that.
Mhm.
Of course, every time we make a record, somebody is they're comparing it to when they were 19, 20 years old. They had no responsibilities and they discovered us for the first time, and they were probably
yeah,
drunk, and they maybe met their future partner, or you know, or their partner for the evening, or whatever it turned out to be. But there's a whole
yeah,
romance built around that record that we can never recreate for people on a new record. So they're songs, right? Whereas Shakespeare is songs and an entire experience around it, right? For a lot of people. So when I toured Australia for the first time, I went solo, and that was an eye opener because all of the songs across the catalog were of equal. Some people knew Rosie and Gray because the Weddings Parties Anything is an Australian band, and they had made that song
right.
Yeah.
pretty big over there.
Yeah, they covered
I
it,
think
right?
a lot of people didn't even know it was my song. I think they thought it was a wedding song, right? So people just took the songs on an equal plane, and it was great for me to see, you know, like Peace and Quiet, every bit as much accolades as Rosie and Gray, or you know, it was
Yeah,
just nice for me as a songwriter to go, okay, yeah, in the fishbowl that you're usually in, there's a whole bunch of weirdo uh, complications that don't allow your songs to be seen on a, you know, even keel, right? But where I
yeah.
just in a new audience, you know, it was great to see that, you know, that they live and breathe as their own entities, you know,
And they still hold up.
and they hold up, yeah. And you
Yeah,
know, some of them, like what would be interesting to see is what songs on Shakespeare somebody might go, if they were in that position and had the whole catalog, you know, to go, I
right.
don't need to hear kind of,
Yeah,
I don't need to hear whatever, you know, whatever it might be.
yeah.
So now you're going back 35 years after the fact. Like how are you looking at these songs? Like are you looking at them like it's an old photograph? Are you looking at them as it's in seeing something completely different, or is it just like some old friends that used to hang around with the bar, or is it just something completely different?
Yeah, I'd say it's funny because I've had a real arc with the songs, right? Because when the Low broke up the first time and I had the Rusty Nails, I would have people, you know, yelling out Low songs, right? And
Yeah.
I was 100% in my, you know, like, I'm not a fucking jukebox, you know, like I was in that zone, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I was trying to start a new band, and I thought, wow, Rusty Nails, we have some great songs. It's a great band. So I would take offense to that. And then, you know, I sort of got over myself, and then the Rusty Nails had some success. And I remember when we did the first Low reunion in 2000, we played the Warehouse, and somebody in the crowd was yelling out for Rusty Nail songs. And I was like, all right, we're even now everything is good, because now both bands have been abused, you know, by the other audience. and we could
Yeah.
now just kind of live my life. But when we came back around, because we don't do this very often, the song in its entirety, when we were rehearsing for it, I was like, I came home and I said to my daughter, like, I said, wow, I like that record. That's a good record, right? And she was like, right. And I'm like, yeah. Like I don't get to just come to it like that again, come through the door.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is, and it's been a blast. It's been a total blast. It's a tough record to do because I don't know why I wrote that many lyrics, but like all the air is going out of my mouth all night long.
Yeah.
I'm not
It
27.
was the lungs of a younger man that wrote
Yeah,
those lyrics.
What about the brain of a younger man? Like I find sometimes if I screw up something on my own song, like how can I forget the lyrics? That's so dumb. I wrote them. And it's
right.
so
When you've
embarrassing.
written so many lyrics, though,
Yeah,
that
I don't
Yeah, I
know.
mean,
I
I'll
think you
give
can
you the
fall back
credit.
on that, but
that's the muscle memory that seems to be good for me. Is like I seem to be able to keep all those in there. Like my partner is an actor sometimes, and she
yep.
does and she memorizes lines, and I'm looking at her and I'm going, how the hell do you do that? She's like, are you kidding me? Like I'm like, yeah, but I wrote those songs. Like I wrote them, so I created them out of my brain.
Right.
So probably they stick more than somebody handing you some stuff that you just have to memorize. I don't know if I could do that. Like that seems like
Yeah.
a
Yeah, but I wonder though, Ron, because I think if we came and said, okay, give me, just rattle off some lyrics from Bleed a Little While Tonight or something, you could probably do it because you sang all these songs and you keep repeating them, like, not all the
Mhm.
time like this tour, but Jill's gonna learn a script, and then if we ask her next month after that script is gone, I bet you it's not in her
Oh no.
brain anymore.
Yeah. Why would it be? I mean, it would be
Yeah.
crazy if that stuff was just building up in the brain.
Yeah.
Hard
Yeah.
drive would be getting, uh,
I here's the challenge. Andrew and I were talking about this before you came on because I know, especially with this tour, you've been doing a gazillion promos and podcasts. And I said to Andrew, I said, really, it's so hard because I don't want to ask him the same questions that Humble and Fred asked him and 50 million things. And my wife, Kim, who also she would fall into the category. I think that was brilliant when you said there's two categories that are watching our show. The ones that never care if we ever record again, and the ones that are up to speed with what's coming on. And Kim and I fall in those two different camps. Absolutely loves Shakespeare My Butt. But then when we bring like my son Ben, I bring him the new stuff and he's like, that's pretty cool. So we play it and then Kim's like, well, that's cool. Is that Ron? I'm like, yes. Why do you always talk about like there's other things than Rosie and Gray,
right.
you know? But
She's
anyway,
invested in the one album.
yeah, she's invested in the one album, but I didn't want to get so anyway, I sat down and she said, well, I would like to ask Ron this stuff. And so I started writing it down. Like, we both know you paint. Has it always been music or painting? Like, I can't picture you in a suit and a desk. Uh, has it always been for you? Like, this is what I'm doing. Come
Yeah.
hell or high
Well,
water.
that sort of happened. I come from a very working class family. My dad's a window cleaner or was a window cleaner. And my mom did a bunch of working class jobs and then became a manager at a reinsurance company, which is weird because those are insurance companies that insure insurance companies. Like if Wayne Gretzky, if
Yeah.
they have to pay out on Wayne Gretzky, they don't want to do that. So they've got a other insurance company insuring them. So I came up
Yeah.
from the East End of Toronto, and so when I grew up as a teenager, I took a bunch of jobs like that. Like I've classically, like me and my buddies from high school, put out flyers and paint people's houses and stuff like
Yep.
that. Build decks, and again, Ruby will say to me, like, it was like when you were 17, she's like, did you know how to build decks? I'm like, no, not really. Sort of knew. I'm like,
Figured it out.
but I have this sort of like probably to a detriment. I have this sort of like, how hard could it be? Like
Right.
could happen, like, well, a lot of things could happen. So I had some jobs like that. I hung all the drapes all over Ontario every time we tour. I'm like, yeah, I hung the drapes there. Yeah, I hung the drapes in that hotel. And then I was a gas fitter for a while. But I remember 1991, it was maybe 3 or 4 months into the low. I went out and had some drinks with some friends and I said, that's it. It's music or you put me in the ground. Like, I'm not doing anything. I don't think I'll be able to do what I need to do if I'm splitting myself this way, because
Right.
also a lot of those gigs, I also worked at Upper Canada Brewery, and they would put me on like the inspection light and I would have played till like 3 in the morning and then gone out drinking and then show up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning to work on the inspection light. And I would tell my friends, do not get any beer from Upper Canada this week because I was on the inspection light and I was asleep for 3/4 of it. So, there could be anything in those bottles. But
So
yeah,
that
Yeah.
and that in 91, it was like, this is it. And ever since 91, that's been the case. And it's weird because I think a lot of my friends think like I'm a unicorn because there are not that many people. There's fewer than I would think that are just making their sole living from their art.
Right.
And
it
that
kind
said,
of
it's a hustle. It's like I paint,
yeah,
I produce records. I'm in 3 bands. I'm, like it takes a lot of balls to keep it all in the air, but
no, for sure.
Yeah.
it's what I was, I'm an atheist, but I still believe this kind of like, it's what I was put here to do, for lack of a better thing to say, or it's the thing that gives me joy. So,
Yeah.
It's interesting kind of thinking back like to Shakespeare My Butt. Like I kind of think that I'm hearing like the working kind of the write that you're writing about the working class individual, you're writing about the city of Toronto, kind of the really the heartbeat of it. And and that's kind of what's been able to build you up to what you are. Um, in terms of inspiration back then, what was inspiring those words? Like, is it just the fact that you hung drapes and you swung a hammer, or were
no, I
there
think
other
it's
things
funny.
that really
No, I mean,
created the album?
I met a very good friend of mine in grade 9, and he was a total weirdo. And he was one of those people. He sat in front of me in homeroom, and I didn't know him. I just met him, and I think he told me a joke every morning. He was a chess master. It was like, I got to know this freak. Like he's
Yeah.
a weirdo. So we became very,
Yeah.
very good friends, and then we started a band. The very first band I ever started, called Social Insecurity. And then that's where we met David Alexander. So I've been playing with David Alexander, the drummer, for 43 years or something like that, which is insane.
Yeah.
But we all also got involved in, because of the imminent threat of nuclear war back then. It
Mhm.
was very palpable. There was a lot of peace coalitions. We got involved in peace coalitions and anti-nukes coalitions and stuff like that, and that led to working with anti-racist action and OCAP and all these political organizations. And we both sort of got to become very socialist very early in our teens, and that informed Social Insecurity. And then when that broke up, me and David met Stephen Stanley, and we formed a band called Popular Front, which was similarly not quite as political, but it was involved in sort of big ideas. Like South Africa was a thing at the time, and
Yep.
El Salvador and the Contras and stuff like that. So I was writing songs that were political in a giant way, and it was kind of like not super successful. It was kind of successful, and there were some great songs. We've actually pillaged a few of those songs and brought them back to Lowest of the Low Records. I can point out a couple to you in a sec, but for some reason, and that's we started grinding our gears, and that leads up to this 35th anniversary, because we've released a 35th anniversary vinyl that has an extra EP in it, and that EP is called Limbo Town Revisited. And that's because there's a song in there called Another Year in Limbo Town, which was written in about 1990, right around the Shakespeare songs being written. And it was about Popular Front and like, why are we grinding our gears? We're not getting anywhere. Should we just give up? We're in limbo here, right? And so we changed our name. Like Dave actually said to me, I think we should pack it in. And there was a split second where we almost did that. But we took, we sort of slept on it. And over the next couple months, we changed the name of the band to Lowest of the Low. And then I stopped writing about South Africa, and I stopped writing about wherever the fuck. I started writing about the Carlisle Bridge, and I started writing about the Only Cafe. And it was like, the songs were sort of like no less political, really. It's just that the politics was baked into real life things, and people. And I suddenly, after 10 years, learned how to write what which is the very first thing they teach you. It took me a while to learn that. Right? The minute I did that, like suddenly our 10-person show became a 50-person show, became a 150-person show, and that just went like that, like straight up.
Yeah.
So it's a lesson on so many levels, because it's like we could have just as easily have flipped the coin and quit, and we didn't.
Yeah. Wow.
And then, so there's that song, and there's a song called Righteous and a song called Marrow and Bone, all three that could have been on Shakespeare, but we left them off for some reason. We're like, they're too old. They're 4 months old. So we left them off that record and released them 35 years later. But they all tell the story of that transition from Popular Front to Lowest of the Low. And
That's
and
cool.
yeah, so I think that the sort of I just realized, some people are very good at writing very pedantic political songs, capital P
Hmm.
political songs. I just don't think that that's my strong suit. I think I'm much more like Billy Bragg or
Yeah.
like maybe like the Clash or whatever. It's like you just take those ideas and just deliver them in a more everyday way. People will,
Is the meaning still the same to you
I feel like it. I
when
feel
you're
like
playing those songs? Do you recognize the person?
I do. Yeah, I totally do. And I feel like this is the through line from social insecurity to popular front to lowest at the low, is that the main driving force for the reason that I make art, period, is because I want people to feel human. I feel like when you leave our show, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, and I'm not going to tell you that we should build a collective that's going to do this or do that. What I'm going to do is hopefully when you walk into the street, you feel alive and you feel like a compassionate human being. And if you feel like that, then you're most likely going to band together with other like-minded people, and we're going to do some, we'll get some things wrong, but we're going to do some big, powerful things. Whereas in the very beginning, we thought our music is going to change the world, like in a like change the world sense, like in a way
Right.
that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
say when you're 17, right? And now I feel like our music has changed the world, but it changes it one person at a time. And I get so
Yeah.
many DMs from
Yeah.
people.
Get that.
Yeah, and I get so many DMs from people, or we do the 35th anniversary, and it's in high focus because I had quite a few grown men coming up to me with tears in their eyes saying things like, like, you can't believe how much this show means to me. Oh, one guy told me an amazing story about, he was 16 and he wanted to come see us at the Opera House in the original day, and he's from Barrie, and his parents said, "There's no way you're going to Toronto and going to a rock show at 16." He talked them into it, and he went down with his buddy, and apparently he got jumped outside the bar and got beat up badly enough that he went to the emergency with his buddy. So they never saw the show. And before he got another chance, we broke up. So this was the first time he got to see us since then. And he went with the same buddy who took him to the ER, right? So he was very, very worked.
Wow.
Just, it was very emotional for him. And, we get
Yeah.
lots of that. And it's like, that's when I go, okay, so we changed the world, not in the way that we thought we would, but in maybe a better way or a more personal way, or,
Yeah.
That's crazy that that happened to him. Like I often talk to other people about the fact I feel safer walking downtown Toronto than I do in a lot of smaller cities after dark.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it does happen, but the fact that it happens when this kid's going out to his first rock concert at 16.
And he had to talk his parents into it. Like, can
Yeah,
you
well,
imagine?
exactly. They probably never let him back in the city
I
again. He's
told
probably
you.
still not allowed in the city.
He's a grown man. Yeah, his mom probably let him into the city for the weekend, but
Mm.
Yeah, that's too bad. No, that's kind of cool. Now, let me ask you this though, Ron. So Shakespeare My Butt's the first time you start writing what you know. Of all the songs on, and I know this is an unfair question, but of all the songs, is there one that is the most personal to you and takes you right back to that time and place immediately every night you sing it?
oh wow, it's funny because like I'm not being disingenuous when I say like most of them do that, because
Right.
if I take them apart, the one thing I was told by friends after we made that record is, hey, maybe next time you don't use proper names, and like sort of like dox everybody and talk about exactly where all these things happened. Maybe art it up a little bit more. So that's the thing, is every song, like Rosie and Gray is about my relationship with my partner that broke up as the band was starting. So we broke up in 1991, at the very beginning of 91, and that was an 8-year relationship, as the song tells us. And so like that song is about her, and Subversives is about her, and Bleed a Little While Tonight is about another person that I had a very intimate situation with. And then Henry Needs a New Pair of Shoes was a real guy that I ran into in the park all the time, who was always asking for money, and his shoes were like, duct taped together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I would just see things. It was like, I keep talking about how there was such a romance around me at that time. I just quit my job for good. I was out of that relationship, and now sort of like a single man with a brand new band in a city that was intoxicating me. And I walked around with a notebook all the time. And I was like, it's almost as if the universe just said like, okay, dude, if you can't make a record out of this, then you should just hang up your pens, because, like,
Yeah.
there was just so much magic pixie dust around me all the time, or
Yeah.
I perceived it that way anyway. Maybe I was just being a deluded young man, but it was very much like there was a buzz in the air.
I think it's kind of nice you have the proper names. I'm always wondering because, I was listening to Lowest of the Low when Lowest of the Low was starting.
Mhm.
So those of us that were knew So Long Bernie, what that was about. I wonder if people are listening today, do they get that? That's a pretty old story. Do they,
I
like,
think
do
it's not the
younger
story
people?
that you think it is, though.
No?
Do you
Did I
think
get it wrong?
well, you think it's about
Most people think it's about Bernardo.
yeah, it's
You're saying
not.
that's wrong.
Yeah, it's not about Bernardo.
What is it about? Was that
It's
just a luck of like luck? I don't know if luck, it was a
yeah, I think
coincidence
it
that
was
that was
just
happening.
a weird coincidence because it was about some friends of mine, actually buddies that were in the band Dig Circus, were telling me about a friend they went to high school with, who to them was like, oh, he's the greatest. What a great guy, and they sort of loved this dude and everything. And then he had this kind of secret life, and he was a predator, and he kind of had assaulted a few people, and he finally got charged with it. And
Right.
they were shocked, like they were like they couldn't believe it. So I just, as I say, like my mind was just a sponge, like boom, that's a song. You don't know
Sure.
the people around you as much as you think you do. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And the timing of that song just coincidentally came out when the whole Bernardo thing was breaking.
Yeah. And I guess I can't tell you now if I clocked that and that's why he's called Bernie in the song or not, or if it just fit rhythmically,
Right.
I can't really remember, but
Yeah.
I know more people, a lot of people have said to me, oh, it's about Paul Bernardo. And I'm like, well, not really. I mean, it fits, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's about a dangerous narcissist. Let's put it that way.
yeah.
You know.
So it could be about an awful lot of people.
You're right.
Yeah, that's true. Have you ever found it
Luckily, they
difficult? Like,
never raised to the level of president or anything like that.
well, have you ever, Ron, have you ever found it difficult? This has nothing to do with Shakespeare My Butt, but um, finding a balance between your music and your family and all the requirements that has that ever been a challenge, or everybody's just on board and it?
I think so. I mean, I think it's a challenge. I think like having a family is a challenge, period.
Just period. Yeah.
And then having a family of the generation of Gen Zers who went through COVID, if you go door to door, you'll find that every family has had a struggle with how their kids were messed up by COVID, and
Yeah.
so our house is no different. So
Yep.
that was difficult. The cool thing about our household is, like I was, like Jill is an incredible mom, and we're really a team in our house. Like, and as we were joking earlier, like the bar is set so low for dads. If I get up before
Yeah.
noon, I'm yeah. My God,
It's
what
a
an amazing
great
guy.
day for Ron.
So,
I've never seen Ruby go to school, but I think I know the school she goes to. I
yeah, I
think that
think
maybe.
I could
think I
probably pick her up if you needed me to.
Yeah, yeah.
he's about this tall, right? Yeah. So no, I mean it wasn't like that. Yeah. So the cool thing about being a musician is that I've it seems like I'm busy and I am busy, but when I'm not busy, I'm really not busy. So I was able to be in. I've been able to be in Ruby's life from a baby till now in a way that most people don't get to because they're at jobs, right?
Yeah.
So I get that. Well, but when she was 2, I did go and tour Australia for a month when she just turned 2, and it was kind of killing me. And I was making every excuse I could not to do it. I was like, it was an incredible opportunity for me. And I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
but then I got to take a plane, then I got to take a train to the bus. And then and finally Jill was like, are you crazy, dude? You have to do this. Right.
Yeah.
All the time knowing that I was going to be leaving her with a 2-year-old, which is an insane amount of work. And, we're still not quite sleeping. And luckily also my family, my mom and dad are in town and they're incredibly supportive. And so again, part of the team.
But it's
But
also still how much kids change at that age. Like you'd be gone for a month and you'd probably come back to another new little person essentially.
oh, 100%. I did this thing where I think I made 30, 15-second little films that were just like, I was running out of ideas by, 22 or whatever, but was like, let's talk about the animals in Australia. It was like, I just wanted her to have like Jill
something to watch dad, something to connect to.
yeah, so that I'm almost there every day,
That's cool.
And so that was
Yeah.
fun. And
You told the 2-year-old that all the animals in the world that can kill me live in Australia.
yeah,
This is what's happening.
that's right. And some of those animals are called alcohol.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
thing is, though,
Wait, Aussies.
the
Wow.
like the fact that we can actually now do that when, you know, back when you first released this album, that wouldn't have been even an option. Like that technology just didn't exist. So everybody that went on tour, they were gone for a month, 3 months, 6 months, or whatever, and you'd give up your life back with your partner, your kids,
Yeah.
your family in general. Just
Yeah. And like I was just talking about this the night that Ruby and I went out with Yvonne and Sandy. We were talking
Mhm.
about the day. And I was talking about that I'm 7 years sober at this point. And Sandy, she was the original manager of the band. And she's like, oh, well, was there like a culminating event? What was the thing? And I said, well, no, just that I remember the height of those times and how toxic the industry is, and how, like you're saying, like I would get an event, we did 250 shows a year or something. So I was in a van all the time with the lads, and it was like I had an apartment in Toronto, but I was never in it. Had a girlfriend, but you're back and forth, you
Yeah.
barely see each other. You
barely saw her.
yeah, you call on the phone and it's collect, and there's that weird time thing, and you're like, are you mad at me? Like, you can
Yeah.
tell, you couldn't
Yeah.
zoom anybody. So yeah, it's really, really a difficult, it's really taxing physically and emotionally. And unlike today, where I was like, if somebody had told us in 94, you know what, guys, you need a mental health break. And maybe what you should do is not see each other for 6 months, like get together for dinner or whatever, but like take a big break from each other. Don't get in a van together. That band would probably not have broken up, but, we just
Yeah.
were right on top of each other
Yeah.
for 4 years straight, right?
One of the interesting things I've found about bands, and again, this is my wife and I've made this observation. She's a sports psychologist, so she's always reading people. She goes, the interesting thing about bands is that often when you look up there on the stage, you kind of see 4 or 5 guys that if they weren't playing music, they probably wouldn't have much to do with each other. And
Mm,
sometimes I think that's maybe why bands don't hang out or don't last, right? But when I see Lowest of the Low, and even with Monday Morning Whiskey, I feel like, yeah, I can hang out and have a beer with these guys or go out for dinner.
yeah.
Music's just one thing that we get to do together. So,
Yeah, that's a win, because I know what you're saying. Like I know lots of bands that look like, or were they put together by a think tank? Like,
yeah,
our
yeah,
band right now.
yeah,
And and back in the day, of course, like I love Stephen Stanley. He loved me. There's a joke. There was a joke I always make, which is when I saw the Oasis doc, there was a line they said, Noel's got a lot of fingers and Liam's got a lot of buttons. And I was just transported. I
yeah.
was like, I love Steven, he loves me, but we were in a van together and we knew
It's just
exactly
like
what was so
brothers.
crazy.
Yeah.
You know exactly what buttons to press
Yeah.
and when to press it.
So now the great thing about it now is that we have this crew, and you can't really artificially make it happen. It just either happens or it doesn't. And we're just in a crew now that's a great hang. Everybody respects each other as players and people. And not to say that we agree all the time, because we don't, but we pretty much, there's no choking, there's no punching,
Yeah.
there's no
Well,
quitting.
that helps.
Yeah, everybody just does their thing and adds to the, and it's like that with our crowd too. Like I was saying to somebody recently, a young woman, I said, it's not always been the way it is now. Like we sort of, like when we started out, we had all these kind of cool kids and weirdos and freaks and geeks. And then we had some songs on the radio, and suddenly we were, invaded by the army of backward baseball hack frat boy guys. And we were
Yeah.
like, where the fuck why do they like our music? Where the hell did they come from? Right. And that went on for a while. And now we seem to be back to, like, we've weeded out all those people, and we're back to, just cool people who want to build a community and want this to be more than music. They want it to be uh, it's not about us being on a stage. It's, yeah, yes, we're providing the songs and everything, but it's really about a community that supports us. We support them. When I did my Tommy Douglas Tuesday shows during COVID, once a week on Tuesdays, I would do it for a couple hours. And it was so charming to me to see the chat, everybody coming back, hey man, how's it going? And it was like, are they even watching me? Like they seem to be having
Right.
seems to be a party going on in the chat section. But yeah, so I love
Yeah.
that, which was like, we got a big lifeboat that we're all on, and because like
Yeah.
the world's fucking crazy right now, and it's like, you
Well,
know,
that's the change of the world stuff you're talking about. Because I always find that going to stuff like that, you don't maybe change the world, but at least for that moment, that one moment in time, all of us together shared, and we're collectively agreeing on one thing. We're all having a good time. So whatever the differences were, they were been set aside for that moment. And that's always, you know, that's a win.
I do like the
what we
idea
should have said
of
back then was more like, we're not going to make the world worse.
Yeah. Hey, I don't know. Have you ever said that to Ruby? Because I've said that to my kids. I don't expect you to make my life better, but don't make it worse.
Make it
If we
worse.
just don't do that.
That's good advice.
yeah, my son pushes that line every single day.
Oh, yeah, I know. But see, we don't have beautiful daughters. Just, I love you, Dad. I'm over
Yeah,
here doing a puzzle if
exactly.
you need
That's
me.
what I needed.
I know exactly that's how it went, Ron. Don't lie to me. It was
Oh,
I do
fantastic.
love the idea though of that, people are coming out from your shows and trying to make the world a better place. It might not be a huge initiative, but maybe it's a couple people coming together to start their own band. Maybe it's somebody that's, decomposing your lyrics
I'm
and
sorry.
that's
Did you say decomposing his lyrics?
yeah, like just
you meant
what's the word?
deconstructing, but that's okay.
Yeah, see, we know what we're talking about. Thanks.
Decomposing.
I'm gonna, I'm just
We're going to
gonna go
unpack that.
down
We're
and
Will,
decomposing on our
all
own.
right.
dissecting your lyrics and really starting a new movement. Whatever. Maybe they start a fanzine. Who knows? But
Mhm.
it, that's going to inspire them and it's going to inspire others. That's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, and
I'll
it's like I didn't
learn
yeah,
English
that's like
later.
I learned it from I feel like I learned it from Billy Bragg and from the Clash and stuff like that. Like I specifically remember going to see Billy Bragg at the concert hall in Toronto every time he came through in the 80s. And that's what I felt when I left. First of all, I would say, like, what is he doing jumping jacks backstage? Because he flies out of from the wings and he just seems to be
Yeah,
ready to go. And then when we
it's
left those
fun.
shows, I personally felt like I'm going to go home right now and write a song. I'm going to go home right now.
Yeah.
And I feel like for him, it wasn't necessarily about music, but it would be about like, I'm going to go home and bake the greatest cake I've ever baked, like just to feel. And that's what I mean. Like, I know that I felt more human when I left those shows and I realized, wow, and I'm not by myself. Everybody in here is getting the same
Yeah.
thing. I got a chance to open for him across Canada in about 2008. And at a certain point, I just breathed a sigh of relief seeing him every night to realize Billy's real. This is authentic. It's not something he puts on. And eventually I started calling him the Gordie Howe of socialism, which he didn't get. He was like, who the fuck's Gordie Howe, mate?
Yeah.
And I'm like, because my dad would tell me stories about Gordie Howe being at the rink and like, they're like, Gordie, we got to go home. They're trying to turn off the lights, but he's signing autographs for, if there's a kid who wants an autograph,
He's
Gordie's
going to sign it.
and
Yeah.
Billy's the same way at the merch table. He talks to every single person about real things too, like not about, hey, here's my new record, and if you buy this, I'll give you two. Like none of that. It's more about what's going on in Barrie, what's happening in Windsor when he's coming through. Like he really cares, right? And that was
Yeah.
like, so then he went home and found out who Gordie Howe was, and he had such a Billy Bragg response because he took that compliment, I guess, but he also loved the Red Wings. Oh, I love the Red Wings logo, mate. It looks like a Russian constructivist, He went right back to the Russian Revolution about their. I'm like, well, it's Motown, so it's really more about cars. They're
Yeah.
unionized, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there you
yeah,
go.
it was great to see. So
Yeah.
it was great to see because that's like decades after I would originally see him, and it was
Yeah.
nice to know that feeling I was getting was authentic. It was just coming right off Billy, and that sort of, I was going to school when I went to those shows because it was like I wanted to be like that. If I'm in a band, I want my band to be like that. I want you to
Yeah.
feel like that.
Yeah. You guys are common. You have that in common, the subject matter in your songwriting. But I've hung out with Billy after I saw him in state college. Yeah, at that Penn State, whatever. But you guys are both very generous with your time. Like just sort of hanging out after show when possible. I don't think it's always possible, and bigger shows probably like on Friday or whatever. But you get to smaller clubs and stuff. There's no putting on of airs or whatever, and pretty genuinely accessible and kind. So I've always appreciated that. It was kind of fun to do that with Billy, but we've done that a few times, and that's cool. Ron, thank you for talking about being generous. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We were hoping to only take you for 30 minutes, but I've got like 30 more questions to ask. I'm going to be in trouble tonight. I think home Kim's like, did you ask him? I said, I tried.
That's in
Andrew
part.
kept cutting me
That's in,
off.
that's in part
Well,
two of this podcast.
part two of this podcast for sure. But thank you for hanging out with
Yeah,
us today.
Yeah, it's
pleasure,
always a
man.
pleasure, guys.
I look forward. Hopefully, I'll get to see you on Friday. I don't know.